वही है घर जहाँ डर हो ना फिकर, मिट्टी की जहाँ आए खुशबू, जहाँ ख्वाब हो फलक पर और सांसों में सबर, जहाँ खुद से हो तू रूबरू। जो देखे कभी सोचे तो जान ले, है कितना खुश किस्मत तू। Let's celebrate the joy of life.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to all of you present here today. I, Ruhi Walia Syal, Ehsaas Woman of Jalandhar, welcome you to another promising session of The Right Circle, a prized initiative of Praneet Bubber Foundation. Today's session of The Right Circle is in association with venue and hospitality partner Radisson Hotel Jalandhar and media partner Dainik Jagran. It is supported by our patron Sri Cement Limited as a CSR initiative. As we gather in this space, let us remember the importance of literature and journalism as agents of change, enlightenment, and social transformation. Our distinguished guest embodies the very sense of these professions, and we are eager to gain some learnings from her experiences and perspectives. We are delighted to welcome author, political commentator, and journalist Neerja Chowdhury. Before we commence the conversation, allow me to take a couple of minutes to talk about Praneet Bubber Foundation. Praneet Bubber Foundation, a non-profitable trust based out of Kolkata, was founded by eminent literature and cultural activist late Dr. Praneet Bubber in the early 1980s. Her vision of working for a better tomorrow is woven in her famous words, "Karm ki Jeevan hai," work is life. The foundation dedicatedly works towards widening the reach and readership of English literature, Hindi literature, and regional literature under the auspices of its multifaceted initiatives like an Author's Afternoon, The Right Circle, The Universe Rights, Aakhar, Kalam, and Loves. The Right Circle is one of the stellar initiatives of the foundation because it gives a platform for writers in the English language and wins its reach and readership. Notable authors get to interact about their life and literary works with a discerning audience. Music to us is an art form that is of utmost importance, introducing the music of the month for November, Born from the Land, curated and composed by three-time Grammy Award winner Ricky Cage. The composer has conceptualized 12 musical pieces for the foundation, each representing a different theme. The soundtrack features Senegal's Baba Mal, Grammy Award winner Looney Park, the Mazanasi youth poet from South Africa, and I Sing from India. It has been performed at key international events to raise awareness about the challenges and problems associated with land degradation and desertification worldwide. Neerja ji doesn't need any introduction, but allow me to say a few words about her. Neerja ji is an award-winning journalist, columnist, and political commentator. In the course of her distinguished career of over 40 years, she was the political editor of the Indian Express for 10 years and covered the terms of 8 prime ministers and 10 Lok Sabha elections. She has won several prestigious awards for her journalism, including the first Mary Devi Jain Award for Outstanding Women Media Person, the India Today PUCL Journalism for Human Rights Award, and the Prem Bhatia Award for Best Political Reporting. She is contributing editor of the Indian Express and her weekly column. The Neerja Chowdhury column is widely followed by participants and observers of contemporary Indian politics. She lives in Gurgaon. To speak to Neerja about her life, career, experiences, and writings, we have Praneet Bubber, Ehsaas Woman of Amritsar, On the professional front, she is an architect. She is also founder of Fulkari, a women organization started in Amritsar. So, without further ado, over to you, Praneet ji. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you so much, Judy, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you and welcome. Welcome to the Right Circle in Jalandhar. It's so lovely to have you here. So while we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you spent some time in Jalandhar. Tell us about that. And how did that, where in your life was that? How did it connect? Did you have any impact on your journey ahead in becoming a journalist?
Yes, I have a very old association with Jalandhar. And while driving into Jalandhar this afternoon, literally about an hour and a half ago, I told Vani, who's so painstakingly been looking after me, there she is. I said, can we just go into the cantonment? She mentioned, we passed the cantonment first. So I said, I spent several years there in the early 50s. My father was posted here as the CEO of the cantonment board. And I remembered I had memories of the house. What the windows looked like. There used to be a swimming, what we call a swimming pool with a huge tank where we used to swim every day. The beautiful shed-toothed trees among others. So we drove in, we looked, thanks to Google. So, what is the, where is the cantonment board? We were passing it, we went in, there was some gentleman, he told us, go to 19 Mall Road, 2 minutes away. And we drove into 19 Mall Road. I suppose we were in a good car, so the car at the gate didn't even question went into the house, and the gentleman who was the CEO, a young man, was there with his wife, and they were coming. So I said, I had this urge to just come and see the place where my family was. And we spent, I must have been 6, 7, 8 years old, whatever it was. 70 saal purani yaad. So it was nice to put on everything and recall that. I don't know whether those years influenced me to become a writer, I don't know that. But I can say they were very happy years. We had a very nice childhood and living in these sprawling bungalows in the cantonments with trees, and so we were very fortunate in that sense. And I have plenty to be thankful for. So I renewed my association with Jalandhar again this afternoon and was very happy to do that. And then the Punjab Kesari family. That's also a very old association of mine. And Vijay Chopra, the patriarch of the family, तो जब भी मैं जलंधर आती हूँ उनके पास आती हूँ, and I hope to do that today. So there are things in Jalandhar. It's media and the Gujral family. I say Gujral. I haven't written about him because I had to narrow down the prime ministers. But had again a prime minister I used to see a lot of. And my book has, I must tell you this, and I tell Vijay this also. In my chapter on Vajpayee, where I look at the decision on him deciding to test the nuclear device. He was a peacenik earlier, became a hawk, a peacenik, and then a hawk again. So when he became Prime Minister in 1998, everything was ready, so he just went for the test. So उसमें मैंने सारी history दी, हर Prime Minister ने nuclear issue पे क्या किया या क्या नहीं किया. And what is not known about Gujarat is that he was the super peacenik. You remember the Gujarat doctrine? Some of you will remember. My name is reminding me, you talk as if we know everything of the background. We don't. So the nuclear test was something Gujarat came very close to doing. He almost did it and was dissuaded. Aapki caretaker government hai, you cannot go in for something like that. Then Dr. Abdul Kalam dissuaded him. So that is a bit which no media has so far picked up. अभी तक किसी ने इस चीज को नहीं छाना, which N.N. Bora told me about, who was his principal secretary at the time. So anyway, this is association with Jalandhar, which is very heartfelt, and I'm happy, very happy to be here, and I must thank the PK Foundation for bringing me.
It's wonderful, really wonderful to hear all your stories. While you talk about Vajpayee's stance on nuclear testing, you mentioned that he evolved from nuclear pacifist to nuclear hawk. What were the implications of this transformation? Sorry, I'm diving straight into your book before talking about your life, but this, since you wrote it out.
My life is not so interesting.
No, about that.
No, it isn't. Vajpayee was a fascinating character. And what fascinates me about him is, how is he seen as a moderate? उनको moderate बोलते हैं ना? In a hard-line Hindu right-wing party. And he managed to stay that way. Advani ji बोलते थे, कई बार हमें बोलते थे. We've come through the same street. He's the moderate, I'm the hawk. And I think there are various reasons for it which I've gone into. Why he became a moderate, and Nehru helped him. Nehru in the mid-50s when Vajpayee first became Prime Minister, when in 1960, Khrushchev had come here from the Soviet Union, and उनके लिए banquet किया था Nehru ने as Prime Minister, and people line up to be introduced. So Vajpayee turn I, he was invited. So Nehru said of him, and this is our future Prime Minister. Yes. This is 1960. And Nehru had sent messages to embassies, particularly the US Embassy, please introduce this man that he'd gone on a trip to various people, expose him, because he is the future. So at that time there were, across the board relationships. You were opponents and you were also, you collaborated. And his parliamentary career also gave him that moderation. And his relationship with Rajkumari Paul, who they were in college together, and they were very, very close. And then as things turned out, they went different ways. Vajpayee became MP, Rajkumari Paul was married, and then they met at a function in Ramjas College in Delhi. Her husband was a lecturer there, had invited Vajpayee, and then something rekindled again. And she was a Kashmiri Brahmin, and of course, when he was Prime Minister, she lived in his house with the children. So he owned that relationship. And she brought to him the influence, a very different influence of a world that went beyond the BJP's, or at that time, the Jan Sangh ecosystem. And so people say that they would have vigorous arguments. So she was a moderating influence on him. And that's a fascinating, I often say, there has been a biography of Vajpayee recently which is talked about her daughter being Vajpayee's daughter, and that's created controversies. But I say, then whatever the relationship, there are some relationships that are not really defined. And so anyway, there are many influences in Vajpayee's life. जैसे कि आपने कहा nuclear में, he wrote a poem in the 50s, Hiroshima ki Pila. How could those scientists, did they imagine the kind of Holocaust it would result in when they devised the bombs? And then, of course, as I say, he became hawk in 60s because the BJP's policy was good. to test for nuclear, for India to become a nuclear power. And when he was foreign minister, he voted against going nuclear, and then as prime minister, did the test himself.
The details with the various prime ministers. A quick, brief overview of the 6 prime ministers that are discussed here.
The prime ministers I have chosen are Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, Vishwanath Pratap Singh, P.V. Narasimha Rao, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and Dr. Manmohan Singh. We've had 15 prime ministers. One, Gujarilal Nanda, was caretaker twice. Otherwise, if you want, you need prime ministers, 14 prime ministers. And I had to narrow it down. I couldn't write even a book about 14 prime ministers and their decision. So I used the thumb rule. All those who had completed their term. But there were exceptions. And the exception was Nehru. And I left out Nehru even though he is really, he created the edifice of modern India and its institution, ruled for 17 years. Because I felt my own political consciousness starts after that. I included BBC even though he lasted only for 11 months. Because he changed India forever. In that short time. And then I decided to do Modi. You haven't asked me this question, but I'm preempting this why I've been doing Modi. I decided to do Modi. I worked on it. I even did a draft. And then a friend of mine, also a journalist, who I gave her the book to read as a critique, she said, Neerja, तुम्हारा ये chapter बहुत हल्का हो जाता है. Because you don't have the insider view of how the decision was made in the instance of Modi that you have for other prime ministers. And I realized I would not be doing justice to him, even though he brought about a paradigm shift in Indian politics. I mean, the changes he brought are phenomenal. You can agree with them, you can disagree. Now, and I realized that people will not talk freely. People in that orbit of no will not talk freely as long as the Prime Minister is in power. Most of the people who talk to me freely about the other Prime Minister did so after they had directed office. So I decided then, this is for the future.
How prime ministers examine significant political decisions in India's history. What inspired you to write this book?
You know, I have covered politics for a long, long time. I started off as a civil rights correspondent with the Statesman, and then found politics is everywhere. That I wanted to get into political writing, and as I got into political writing, I realized that this was an area I was not written about. This was a veil, it's an opaque area. How prime ministers decide. What are the pulls, the pressures, what are the challenges they deal with, what are the machinations, what is the backstabbing that you saw instances of, what are the flashes of statesmanship, wisdom, ground level pressures, caste, community, religion, battle of ideas, all that they have to contend with, their own personal vulnerabilities. And they don't inherit a clean slate. They inherit whatever, it's a legacy of whatever has gone on before, which they have to then deal with. And I felt I wanted to lift that veil a little bit and see how decisions are made. And enough biographies have been written of prime ministers, and I didn't want it to be a biography. Of course, the biographical details, the style of functioning, वो सब आ जाता है उसमें. How they became prime ministers, वो सब आ जाता है. but it is much more looking at one decision per Prime Minister.
Diving into Indira Gandhi, you discuss Indira Gandhi's strategy to return to power in 1980 after her defeat post-emergency in 1977. What were the key elements of her strategy and its historical significance?
You know, when I decided to do Indira Gandhi, enough had been written about the creation of Bangladesh. Enough had been written about the emergency. I said, what is it that one can look at? And something that tantalizes experts, observers, analysts even today. And there's a controversy about this. Even today, is why did she go for elections in 1977? Apni pair pe kulari kyun mari? Where she lost. And she lost absolutely wipe out in North India. Her own constituency, Sanjay's constituency, all lost. And she didn't have a sense. Of course, the IB told her you will win by 40 seats. I'm sure she didn't believe it. But why? What compelled her to go into it? So that is something I discussed. And then, in 36 months alone, she's back in power. With the largest majority she ever got. 36 months. How did she do it? And हम लोग जब पढ़ते थे ना तो we would think कि जनता के these three old men, some of you don't know, but Umaraji Desai, the Prime Minister, Charan Singh, the Home Minister, Babu Jagjeevan Ram, Dalit leader who'd been in power since Nehru's days. Defense Minister, squabbling, इनके आपस के ego struggles, झगड़े की वजह से शिकंदा की बात, which is only part of the truth. And as I looked deeper, I found that it was really Sam Daan Gandhabhed at its best. She devised strategies, and the person who helped her was her son, younger son, Sanjay. And he was responsible for her defeat in 1977. He was responsible for her victory in 1980. और कैसे उन्होंने अपने opponents को अपनी साइड किया, राजनारायण, जयप्रकाश नारायण, बाबू जगजीवन राम को खत्म कर दिया, he would have been a challenger. So she got the better of her opponents and got the people's allegiance. And that also, she, apart from winning her over her opponents, she Hinduized her politics. और 1977 और 80 के बीच में she visited every major temple in the country. Partly because of Sanjay, she feared out of part the Janata people will harm him, and partly because she wanted to send a signal to the Hindus, consolidate their following, so she lost the support of the Muslims during the emergency. So, किस खूबी से इन्होंने that killer instinct in her, that fascinated me as a story. Indira Gandhi, you can say it was a moral degeneration in politics. That started in her time. Power for the sake of power, power at any cost. That is also her contribution. And generations of politicians who followed her studied how she did it. And people used to tell me, Narendra Modi, it was something we had looked at. But anyway, Indira Gandhi is very fascinating from that point of view. The high and the low, both.
When you write about Narasimha Rao's indecision resulting in the demolition of the Babri Masjid, what factors and events led to this historic decision?
Narasimha Rao का जो demolition Babri Masjid का हुआ 1992 में, which influenced the politics, which led to the rise and rise of the BJP. Very interestingly, is summed up by him. 4 journalists went to see him 3-4 days after the demolition, and they said, "हमने सुना है कि आप सो रहे थे जब बाबरी मस्जिद को गिराया जा रहा था, या सुना है कि आप पूजा कर रहे थे." So he was really provoked, and he said to them, "Do you think I don't know Rajniti? I was born in Rajniti, and I allowed this to happen. And I allowed this to happen because I wanted this festering sore to be removed, which was fueling BJP's politics." उनको लगा कि मंदिर की कहानी खत्म, मस्जिद की कहानी खत्म, तो कहानी खत्म हो जाएगी. कहानी खत्म हुई. During the period he was in power, it went to the background, and the truth was also that he himself wanted to build a temple there and take that Hindu plank away from the nation. और registered trust भी register कराया. All the major sects in the country, top Hindu sects, he put them on. 95 he changed his mind. अगर power में बाद में आएंगे 96 में करना. So, but it fueled Hindu nationalism in a way that few other things. So Narasimha Rao could have imposed president's rule. He could have called the army to be there. There were several steps that he could have taken, but he chose not to.
It was quite obviously intentional. As you mentioned,
that was part of his, and he saw the balance of advantage laid, allowing things to happen as they did.
but it's interesting that we never saw the polarization that, as you mentioned, started then, as we are seeing it today. Why is it that we only talk about it today and we didn't talk about it as much? I understand it was set in motion back then, but we didn't talk about it as much. It wasn't as evident back then. I know this is not in your books, this is a...
No, this started even in Rajiv Gandhi when he ordered the opening of the locks at the Babri Masjid to allow worship of the Ram Lalla ki Murti, which had been, there was a bill put there in 1950, and then Rajiv facilitated the opening to placate the Hindus because he had undone the Shahbani judgment to placate the Muslims. So the Hinduization story there, what I call the Hinduization of the Hindus, that story is being going on. And it's a matter of, Narasimha Rao ने थोड़ा ठंडा कर दिया, फिर थोड़ा और गर्म हुआ, and today, and that is something we have to understand. This is something I personally feel I need to understand, this Hinduization of the Hindus, that make them feel that the other has to be targeted. The other is responsible for what is happening to us. And therefore, there is a feeling कि नरेंद्र मोदी हमारे रक्षक हैं.
And could it be the victim mentality has set into us? It's easier to blame the other sect. Maybe we're victimizing ourselves. It's easier to get away with whatever we've done and blame it on the others. Why it's become so obvious now?
That's also there. To have another person to target, as you say,
Yes, ma'am.
and we are the victim. It's always easy. Demonetization में भी फायदा इसलिए मिला
Yes.
क्योंकि अमीरों को ठोका.
Yes.
गरीबों, all these poorer people, ordinary people, stood in their lines for hours, couldn't get money, so much hardship, difficulty. लेकिन अमीरों को तो ठोका.
Yes. Yeah.
अब अमीरों को ठोका नहीं ठोका because 99% of the money came back. But that perception, that message is there. So it's always easy, even religion, caste-wise, upper caste is to blame. So political parties have done that over the decades.
Now, the only thing I feel so sorry now to understand is we Hindus being in majority in our own country, why are we so scared of the other minority religion? What has set in our minds that have made us so vulnerable that this minority is harmful to us? When we are in majority, majority is always overpowering. Why?
It's a question to which I want the answer also.
So we shall sit over
Why? And there are many reasons. There's history, with baggage of the past. There are many things. But why should we, as over 80%,
Yes.
feel beleaguered?
Yes.
And it's not even, the Muslims are not on, we salat to nahi hai na.
Exactly.
200 million hai.
It's a majority strength, but here it's reversal now.
We can't throw them in the sea.
Yes.
You may think they're completely wrong.
No, they're not.
For our own interest, we want to take them along. और generally इंडिया में तो ये है ना कि भाई सबके साथ मिलके रहना है tolerant, give and take, जोड़ तोड़, जुगाड़, ये सब उसी से आता है ना. At the end of the day, we don't choose our neighbors. So, but that is now disappearing. Some people feel Narendra Modi in his third term, if he comes to power, which is likely, may reach out to the minorities in a new way. I hope that happens.
Really? Is that something that people are talking about? That we will reach out to minorities?
Well, some believe in the part. He's talked about Pasmina, Muslim, and somebody I talked to close to that setup said this to me, which interested me.
Yeah, that's quite a revelation. Because that's something that I think we all do fear.
No, I think there has been a consensus that's been working on it to target the minorities which have never been talked about all over India. There are people who've been getting benefits from the scheduled caste or other backward classes, but there are communities which have not been touched are being talked about now, which ma'am is saying yes, it is working on that.
Interesting.
There is also a shift in terms of the general public perception about Modi ji, like you just mentioned. There is also a shift in terms of public perception of Modi ji towards his right-wing method and how he has become more liberal about it. That is pretty interesting. So there is a perception shift with Modi ji's ideology every time he starts to power. He has shifted to a more liberal approach than a right-wing approach. And he is also being sought as a replacement by Yogi or like who are more right-wing than Modi. Initial RSS agenda that was projected on him, he's sort of become a bigger person and risen above that, I think.
I don't think so at all.
Getting back to the book, you talk about Rajiv Gandhi undoing the Supreme Court's judgment in the Shabani case. Could you elaborate on that particular decision and the consequences of what he did?
Rajiv Gandhi, when he took over as Prime Minister after Indira Gandhi's assassination, terrible anti-Sikh riots in 1984, so much turbulence, he was seen as the hope of India. और आते ही उन्होंने Punjab Accord, Mizoram Accord, Assam Accord, reducing the voting age, anti-defection law. For those of you, some of you may not remember, but some may. आया राम गया राम, इधर से तोड़ के इधर ले आया, उधर से तोड़ के इधर गए. He did many things. But technology mission, looking ahead, I want to take India into the 21st century, futuristic. But what was his undoing was a simple judgment called the Shabani judgment. Which there must be hundreds of those judgments every day. A Muslim woman, old Muslim woman, 5 bachche grown up. Husband divorces her and she wants maintenance. And the court rules she must be given 25 rupiah per month. And the Muslim community has announced that it is interference in their personal law. And the personal law is sacrosanct. And so they took to the streets in a way they had not done earlier. Rajiv Gandhi was modern and was for the Shabani judgment. A Muslim woman getting suckered is something that should be done. And I start my chapter on Rajiv with a comment from Sonia Gandhi. to her husband. Because he was contemplating a law, Muslim women bill to undo the Shahdari judgment. And Sonia said to him, Rajiv, if you can't convince me about the Muslim women bill, how are you going to convince the country? But he did, he went in for it. The Hindus got very agitated, so then he went in for this solution. What some of his colleagues call a management solution. इसको भी खुश कर दो, हिंदुओं को भी खुश कर दो, open the locks at the Babri Masjid, दोनों ने खुश हुए. 414 सीटों से लेके जहाँ 1984 में वो जीते थे, 1989 में comes down to 197. उसके बीच में कहानी विश्वनाथ प्रताप सिंह जी है, काफी रोज, and he fashioned an instrument which became an alternative to the Congress. आज भी इंडिया की बात हो रही है, INDA alliance, a similar thing that he fashioned. He became the Mr. Clean of Indian politics in place of Rajiv. All again within 2.5 years. These were, 90s were just momentous, the kind of events that took place. So, Rajiv, very well-meaning, sincere, forward-looking, technology savvy, politically naive. Naive or caste, community, and the whole it had a way.
Throughout your book, you talk about the unique role of the Nehru-Gandhi family in Indian politics, and I think everybody knows the influence of their role in India's history. How does this family's legacy influence and align with the themes of your book?
I haven't looked at it that way, but certainly Sonia Gandhi influenced 3 prime ministers. She influenced her husband, Rajiv. She influenced Narasimha Rao. She was responsible for him being selected to be Prime Minister. And she influenced Manmohan Singh when she was half Prime Minister. So the Nehru Gandhi family, the first dynasty of Indian politics, has played a very key role. And I look at how she appointed Manmohan Singh. She was to become Prime Minister herself. She was to be chosen as the leader of the Congress Parliamentary Party on that Saturday. That Monday she had turned it down. And the story is not sacrifice, okay, such a Congress meeting in the time. It was Rahul Gandhi telling her, my daddy was killed, my father was killed, in 6 months you are going to be dead if you become Prime Minister. And if you go ahead, I will do something drastic to myself. And I'm giving you 24 hours to decide. And she turned it down and she brought in Manmohan Singh. Manmohan Singh was the least selected. He had no individual agenda. And yet, I would say he was amongst the weakest prime ministers we've had. But, and there's a caveat here, he showed enormous killer instinct on the Indo-US nuclear deal. Again, 39 months he pursued it. Sonia Gandhi's opposition, left party's opposition, left withdrew support. He won over others to support him. Both, aside to Manmohan Singh, nobody thought existed. And when I went to present the book to him after it was released, he and his wife, they loved the title of the chapter. They mentioned it. The underrated Prime Minister who triumphed. We love that part of it. But he did that, part of Manmohan Singh did not manifest itself in any other decision. He left it to the politics of every decision to Sonia Gandhi. And that was a different kind of model of governance. Because she was chosen to be Prime Minister, she handed over that mandate to him. So it had to be a model of partiality, but it was an interesting model of partiality.
Throughout your book, you mentioned gathering insights from interviews with prime ministers, key figures, policymakers. What would you say was your most memorable interview experience that provided the most significant revelation for your research?
Very difficult to say that. Because so many, बहुत सालों से मुझे लग रहा था मैं कभी किताब लिखूंगी. Or when I would go and meet people, which you do when you cover everyday politics, I would take down notes with detail में notes लेती थी. Use हो ना हो कभी हो. And so I took down whatever they said. Suppose I go and see Naresh Chandra, who was cabinet secretary at one time. He would tell me कि nuclear deal में क्या किया था, Ayodhya में he was the points person for Narasimha Rao. General chat हो रहा है ना, उसमें I would take down, and they knew I might use it at some point. But I must say, so I was very fortunate to be trusted by them that they could talk freely. And when I wrote the book, for all those who are alive, I sent them what I was going to use to ask if they were happy and had I got it right. All of them changed a word here, a word there. It was, they were happy with it. So that, and I tried to corroborate some things where I was not sure. There is a story on Indira Gandhi about Chamunda Mandir where she went after Sanjay's death. And she had not gone and she thought Sanjay died because of that. It was a superstitious part of her. So that story was told to me in 1999 by this gentleman called Anil Bali, who was with Mohan Meeting Company. And Mohan Meeting supported Indira Gandhi. They supported all politicians across. That still is true. But in 1999 he told me this story and मैंने आके इसको डायरी में अपने लिखा था. Or 2018 when I signed up with my publisher, the Aleph book company. So I put Anil Bali on tape. I said, "Ab mujhe batao, kya hua?" and all that. And he told me, the details were the same. And I thought, this cannot be a plant. 19 saal baad, you don't remember those details, even if you wanted to plant them on tape. So those kind of things, corroboration, talking to one other person. But essentially, I would say people trusted me to talk to me, and I get notes.
How do you believe your book contributes to a deeper understanding of modern Indian politics? What impact do you think that will have on the readers?
Oh, that's for the readers. But I can tell you one thing. When I started to write, I really told friends, I want to write for the millennials. My generation, even some of you younger, still remember things.
Yes, very much.
Many things. Abhi Bhani bata rahi thi, coming here, I'm very fascinating talk with her. I mean, for her, she's born after major events. इतने बड़े-बड़े इवेंट्स हो गए ना, पब्लिक पॉलिसी के बारे में हम बात करते हैं, लिबरलाइजेशन ऑफ द इकोनॉमी, मेजर माइलस्टोन्स, मंडल, I think she was born, or was it? No, she was not.
No, she was not.
So,
I was
this is millennials. And I really want this book to be read by millennials. And when younger people tell me, oh, I found your book unputdownable, that is when it excites me. And secondly, I told myself, I'm not going to write this book as an academic. उस तरह का style मुझे नहीं करना है. Because, and I kept fighting with my editors also. I don't want this to be beautiful prose. I want this to be drama, suspense, ये जो होता है ना, politics is that. So the style has to be that, because I want We are an attention deficit generation. Let's face it. Now, avalanche of information. How do I hook your interest? And retain it. You have hundreds of other things.
Which is many. So as a result, this is, our political lives, I would say. This, the things that we talked about in every drawing room conversation, politics, what was happening, so that we all would relate to this. It's not, history. This is, we are a young democracy. So really this is all, and it's very, very well written. I would recommend it to everybody.
65% of India is under 35.
Yeah.
The mean age is 29. So, it's a young India. There are studies for whom we've got to write.
But now they're hearing a lot about that we're not so much democracy.
Yeah, certainly there are people who feel there are huge challenges. There are institutions.
And there are challenges. Is it that we
Absolutely.
feel, or do you think there are challenges?
There are challenges. The institutions are under pressure. No doubt about that. And how we meet those challenges? That is a real challenge now. But I would also say the flip side of the story, which I pointed out. The social mobility and the devolution of power that a democracy brings. One person, one vote. I, as a small community person, मेरा vote है, मैं सरकार बदल सकती हूँ. And it changed. BP Singh used to say, na Mandal ke through, what have I gone in for? Of course he did it for, because his government was eager to save his government. He used to say, I want these OBCs, the backward classes, the smaller communities to सत्ता में सहूलियत नहीं, सत्ता में शिरकत, participation. So you're not only tokenistically 100 लोगों में आपने एक को रख लिया दलित को. No. Mayawati leads the government in Uttar Pradesh. Now she may be good government, bad government is a different thing. But a Dalit woman getting a majority in Uttar Pradesh in 2007 was a milestone moment for us.
Yeah.
And what I say, devolution of Narendra Modi, the Chaiwala, and OBC becoming Prime Minister of India through the ranks. Aaj or Draupadi Murmu becoming the President of India.
Yes.
Yeah.
You may say, President का क्या power है? तो sign ही करना होता है ना? It's just different.
Yeah, the system.
But I keep saying this, अगर मैं बस्तर में एक tribal woman हूँ, teenager हूँ, और द्रौपदी मुर्मू को देखती हूँ मैं, I say I can go places. That those roads are open for me. So it's small town India, Narendra Modi as a phenomenon, I find it very fascinating. And मैं बार-बार ये कहती हूँ, I haven't fully understood it. What I haven't fully understood is it is a response to a changing India, and how that India is changing is what we need to understand. Of course, his Hindutva, of course, his nationalism, national pride. OBC का empowerment किया है, no longer a Baniya Brahmin party, strong leader phenomenon, वो कोई family नहीं है, बेटा नहीं है जिसके लिए आप चीजें छोड़ते जाओगे, and it taps into an aspirational India. We can do this.
No, but as a journalist, the whole idea.
But answering your question, just to wrap it up. So that decentralization of power, the devolution of power to communities who were on the sideline, now coming center stage, is also part of the democratic process. There are the challenges up there, media under pressure, parliament dysfunctional, judiciary not having the autonomy. There are many challenges. Concentration of power in the hands of the Prime Minister's office. This happens with every strong Prime Minister, like Indira Gandhi also. She ruled through the PMO. Ministers become redundant virtually. So वो सब है. And there is this side also, but how we meet those other challenges to our democracy and particularly retain the plural character. I say, diversity and dissent. Diversity of India to respect and dissent as part of democracy to respect are two very important values to go for. Anyway, it's a long answer to that.
I think we're running out of time. One question? One question. Yeah. I just want to know who according to you are the future I want to know who according to you are the future stars on the political horizon. Like who are the ones we should look out for? Kejriwal.
No, if you look at BJP side, they talk RSS and BJP talk about Yogi Adityanath. There is certainly Amit Shah. Hemanta Biswa Sarma is something they are beginning to talk about. Northeast mein. Those three names, Devendra Fadnavis used to be talked about, and now not so, recently he's lost ground. So certainly those names have come to the fore. On this side, of course, there's Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi is becoming, people are taking him more seriously as his image is improved. But as I've been talking even in Punjab to people while coming here, he's not a match to Modi. Not yet. They said not yet. So, अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, sincere हैं, courageous हैं, वगैरह वगैरह, but he's not a match to Modi. So who's the person on this side is the question. We don't know who will emerge. And politics never remains static. Situation throw up new leaders.
I have just one last question and we can continue with all this. Because once I lose you, then my turn's over. Of all the world leaders you've talked to, met, interviewed. World leaders. Now we're out of book. Right? This is not in the book. This is world leaders. Who would you say was the most influential politician on global politics?
That is a difficult one. World leaders to me as a living, actually. No. Not on one-on-one. Indian prime ministers, many of them I have met, interviewed informally, some of them formally. The PP Singh, I would have done interviews for 15-16 hours while he was getting dialysis done after it ceased to be in the Apollo hospital. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Others also, Narasimha Rao, fascinating. He told me, Sonia Gandhi asked me, came about a year after he became Prime Minister, people say I should join politics, what do you think? So he said, I told her no. But I groom your children, if you so want to. And he began to get a sense that she was thinking of politics. So that was probably the beginning of the distance in between them. Arun Nehru, I've had, for some time, the power behind Rajiv and the reason for Rajiv and Arun Nehru falling out. Sonia Gandhi, he told me that. But anyway, again, that doesn't answer the question. World leaders, I would have heard an Obama, I might have gone to any receptions, जहाँ आप अलग-अलग करते हो, 2-3 सवाल पूछ ले. It's very difficult to say who impressed you the most in that sense. There is no one figure that stands out in my mind who impressed me like that. I'm sure there are very tall leaders worldwide. I'd have to think a little more on that one.
Yeah, ma'am, I'd like to ask that we have these very different education, very different background and different communication, right? Marriage skills, we talked about. And as an outsider, just being a commoner, we give all the credit to the Prime Minister for making the decision. Who is it actually who finally has the great say in the decision making? And should we give all the credit to the Prime Minister?
The quickest reflexes. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Who have the quickest reflexes to make a decision?
Yeah, who should we give the credit to? It could be a nuclear thing, it could be anything. Like, for example, our President Prime Minister is not very well treated, right? But then we give all the credit to him. It could be NASA or whatever. So the planner, the decision maker.
The team behind the real decision.
Yeah, exactly.
The team behind the people who
Team
behind the real
is what you're saying?
yeah, the team behind that real decision. Who really makes the decision?
Oh, okay, that's a very good question. Every Prime Minister has a team. What is called a coterie.
Sorry, what is it called?
Coterie.
Okay. Yeah.
These are people, they may not be cabinet ministers.
Right.
They may not be political colleagues, heavyweights. Most likely they are not. Because there's competitiveness, they will not trust. They may be people they trust. It could be from any field. Some Indira Gandhi time, R.K. Dhawan was very powerful.
Yes, right.
I remember R.K. Dhawan's father died, and I remember going after that to pay my condolences. And he told me, उनके जो function था उसमें 10,000 लोग आए थे. And he only related to Indira Gandhi.
Yes.
But powerful, he had access to her. And he knew what was going on. The two prime ministers who I would say did not have a coterie, didn't feel the need for it, was Narasimha. His right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. And he gave information very selectively. मतलब भुवनेश चतुर्वेदी जो राजस्थान के थे, उनके डेप्यूटी थे प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफिस में, उनको भी पता नहीं रहता था कि पूरी पिक्चर उनके भी नहीं. He said, I don't know the full picture. उनको पंजाब मिलिटेंट्स के पास भेजा इलेक्शंस कराने के लिए to bring them around, and this fellow had come. He went and got like a cloak and dagger operation, and he went into Diwar Khan, and this fellow had these weapons which all over. And I didn't know who the fellow was, he didn't know what happened afterwards. He came back and reported, yes, they are willing to do this. They are willing to go along with it. From there, Narasimha Rao to go. So Narasimha Rao did not need to go. He had his officials and all. Vishwanath Pratap Singh was also like that. He would have some people helping him, but really in terms of advice. Vajpayee had a team, Manmohan Singh of course had this thing, and others had to team. So actually at the end of the day, the buck stops with the Prime Minister. Whatever be the advice. वो मैंने start किया है book को how lonely the top is. And I quoted the Prime Ministers. It's Mr. Modi who's made a advantage out of that loneliness. I am there. आप जो भी उनकी पिक्चर देखेंगे वो देखेंगे पिक्चर पीछे इंडिया वन से उतर रहे हैं, लोग बैठे हैं, ट्रेन में बैठे हैं, nobody there. सरदार पटेल के स्टैचू के सामने nobody else. So even inaugurating an underpass, nobody there.
Those are the instructions.
And so what is the it's very smart. Message, मैं हूँ
One man show, I mean,
It's autocratic. It's very autocratic.
Sorry?
Autocratic.
Autocratic to Sabine. But it's a matter of degree.
I would also like to know your opinion. Do you think there should be some minimum education at least assigned to the head of the country?
Prime Minister, that you can say it without the money.
For Prime Minister?
At least for the Prime Minister.
I don't know. I feel very uncomfortable with that. You take, for instance, Jalandhar. It's not the Prime Minister.
Yeah, the CM. Yeah.
She was Banabas. She was senior in English. And Sharad Pawar told me She's amongst half a dozen people in the country who understand the intricacies of WTO, which is very complicated. Very demand, कैसे होगा देशों के साथ. She understood. She had a grasp. She was sharp, bright. Smriti Irani.
So it's the political mind which is more important.
And she works hard and she has a grasp. Now you can say पढ़े लिखे नहीं हैं. नरेंद्र मोदी के बारे में एजुकेशन के बारे में but how to involve the pulse of the people, how to do political communication, new media, social media, latest techniques. You understand the knowledge people use. So I would be
Not sure.
अगर education quality, formal education, formal. कॉलेज में सबसे बेहतर प्रोफेसर्स को आप प्रधानमंत्री बना दो अच्छा हो जाएगा. That would follow.
Political mind you need.
But it is different kind of qualities needed
Leader.
for the
I
leadership
think
of a
if more
country.
is hunger to learn and see people around you what they demand, that is more of an education that's needed than just in the books.
So basic literacy is mandatory now. Literacy is
Otherwise, when there is no education in the vast areas as you know at the distances, right? Then we can't expect we should limit for the prime minister or that. And if one person is capable enough to solve our problems, education, I think,
हाँ दूसरे PhD होना चाहिए, BA होना चाहिए, MA होना चाहिए. I would be a little uncomfortable.
Basic education not needed to be a politician.
No, education is needed, but not formal.
Degree. Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, how will you have to apply yourself to very complex issues today. So basic things you do need. ये तो है. Today's world is not what it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Even technology, I'm floored by it.
Yes.
कैसे यूज करना है, क्या करना है. So all that is needed.
That's something that our current government has mastered.
and one thing more,
Absolutely.
excuse me,
The current government have mastered the use of technology to their advantage. The social media, their PR. Yes, absolutely. You wonder why.
and one thing, like the question was, should we give the credit to the Prime Minister? Should we give the credit to the Prime Minister for all the decisions? I think their team is for every Prime Minister. You can agree with me or not, but the team is for every Prime Minister, but there are guts to implement that decisions. So I think credit should be given to Prime Minister.
Yes, and the team.
Yeah, and the team.
But one thing that really is one thing which is a little disturbing is how, like for example, COVID, or for everything you have the Prime Minister's photograph, or your COVID certificate, to birth certificate, to death certificate, to everything, to the hoardings. It's overkill, I think.
He's advertised himself, marketed himself.
Yeah.
That's what he said when Govindacharya said about Narendra Modi. Absolute master in political marketing.
Yeah, the monthly path is another masterstroke.
And it's a battle of perception at the end of the day. So,
Absolutely.
And it's reaching out. It is reaching out.
reaching out, yeah, but she's saying only one thing, one photograph.
One photograph on everything, ration card se leke
Our
every
vaccination.
certificate, yeah, your vaccination is
Oh,
yeah. It was not needed actually. Your vaccination certificate, you don't need the Prime Minister's photograph. It's more like an overkill, But yeah, that's a strategy.
So coming
It's
back
working.
to that original question that Jay asked, that was there any Prime Minister who, despite the courtship, never took their own decisions later on?
Somebody else took the decision.
The courtship advised in something, but they went against it or applied their own mind to it. Do we get the answer in your book?
Yes, some of it. Like Manmohan Singh I asked. When Ravi Gandhi tore up that ordinance which was Lalu's conviction, and he thought law, he tore it up. And in a public press conference, his own government's ordinance. I said it was the weakest moment of your prime ministership.
Okay.
And first he had an explanation which I won't go into because he didn't. And even the nuclear deal that I discussed, Sonia Gandhi was against him. Whenever a political secretary said this. What is all this are doing? Political side to hum dekhte hain na. He has to get on with administration and government. So two are not dealing.
Okay.
So there were things that prime ministers would have had to do, which they were not convinced about. Had to do or did do for survival, immediate gain, to rest power, to retain power, sab kiya prime minister.
My second very small question is that what were your opinion about Lal Bahadur Shastri? Is not part of this. So was it his very short tenure or is it something else?
No, Lal Bahadur Shastri's term was very short.
Okay.
And but he was very savvy, smart and sharp, and then I hinted that he wanted Shastri to be his successor.
Yes.
Though Shastri used to think that Nehru really wanted Indira Gandhi.
Yes.
But it's very interesting. मैं जहाँ भी जाती हूँ, मैं young लोगों से जब बैठती हूँ, तो मैं पूछती हूँ कि तुमने इस प्राइम मिनिस्टर का नाम सुना नहीं? Nehru, yes. Shastri, yes. One is a younger.
Yes.
Shastri के बारे में सुना.
That's what I meant.
Moraji Desai, no. Charan Singh, no. Indira Gandhi, yes. Rajiv Gandhi, yes. VP Singh, किसी ने नहीं सुना. Really? In any group I met, younger people, नहीं सुना. Aurangabad district, I'm sitting with young men and women, and I find they're not heard. So I said, आप में से कितने OBC हो? Several one of them. आप में से कितनों को जॉब मिला है गवर्नमेंट सर्विस में free as a result of this Mandal decision. I did not follow this. So some leaders are cultified by their families or by the party, and some are not owned by anybody. So Narasimha Rao also now, his contributions are being lauded.
Yeah, but he was into technology.
Because of the opening up of the economy, many more people
Yes.
have been.
Yes.
Gujarat, some parts of the country, nahi, Devagara nahi, Chandrasekhar nahi. Vajpayee, everybody is heard of. I don't see he's too recent. And Modi, of course.
Yes. One last one.
So Shastri is the interesting one.
I wanted to know.
I'm curious, not from the book, but from the work of journalism. Where do you see journalism today? Because I see your journalism as in now, today India. I see it going way, way down. Do you think it is going to emerge back the way it used to write fearlessly? Because this is certainly not happening now. Which is a sad state because journalism is the backbone for democracy. And if we see this falling apart, where do we see ourselves or our future generations too?
Well, I can also add my hopes to yours.
So we're pretty much on the same page on a lot of things.
I hope in some things we get there.
I really hope so. We do need it for a better democracy. Thank you. Anybody else?
The most important thing is the young generation. So what do you think, like the politicians' retirement age to be determined, and what kind of opinion you have about it? And in that way, like the young to be and retirement age of the politician.
Retirement age.
That's the tough one. Big question.
Retirement age for politicians is 75, BJP to 30. वो तो मार्गदर्शक मंडली बन जाती है।
But it becomes a law actually. Like इससे ज़्यादा होना ही नहीं चाहिए.
On the other hand, you have Mallikarjun Kharge, you have.
Yeah.
I think it's they have a role to play. Because they have huge experience. Huge experience at that age. And if they are well enough to do it, why not? But to think that they'll be there forever and ever and ever, that Rajya Sabha will be chahi, otherwise they will be thrown. And I agree, that's not desirable. Give a chance to young people now. अब लोग कहते हैं राजस्थान में सचिन पायलट को लास्ट ईयर बना देते और अशोक गहलोत को move the Congress president to Delhi. You could have been the best thing to happen. The Congress. You would have won. But that's the way politics is.
You mentioned Narasimha Rao saying that I kind of, you would stay out of politics to Sonia, but I'll nurture the children or I'll mentor the children. So according to you, who is the better politician, Rahul or Priyanka?
Politician.
Early days, but I would say Priyanka. Priyanka thinks critically on her feet, I think. And Rahul is very courageous in the way he takes on the government, sincere, well-meaning. But somehow politically he is not clicked as a match to. His image is so much better than it was. भारत जोड़ो यात्रा में जब मैं गई थी महाराष्ट्र में ज्वाइन थे people and then we one single person who said गलत कर रहा हमारे बीच में आया पैदल चल के आया they like that but as a match to Modi no you still have a long way to go. So political what we call political
The political savviness. Yeah.
Political savvy उसमें सारी negativities अभी आ जाती हैं ना all that you are required to do. I think they have not been tested, but my sense is Priyanka probably is more politically savvy.
But she's not been too successful as yet.
Well, it's not so far in UP, but she is being, now she's addressing election meetings and she's quite good in Karnataka she did well, Himachal she did well, और जगह भी कर रही हैं. So let's see, I don't know.
Yeah.
But since you asked me a question, I wanted to give you a direct answer.
Can I ask one last question?
There's a last question already.
Ma'am, I have seen you on television many times in political discussions, so good to see you here. My question is that you have said that how Prime Ministers decide your book title. Just a comparison of two Prime Ministers, Indira Gandhi and Narendra Modi ji, both are very strong personalities. So I was going through news and in one it said that you have written that during the Blue Star operation, Indira Gandhi was pressured by or she was influenced by Rajiv Gandhi and Arun Mehra for taking that decision. I hope you still have your sources in journalism and if you have some insights in Modi ji's decision making. Who are the people responsible behind demonetization? Because we hear that not many people within cabinet knew about demonetization. So how he came to such a decision, or are people really advising him on that? Is there a need for match or is there a need for replacement? Is there replacement to that idea, person, it can be party, it can be an idea. So what do you have to say on that?
See, who were the people behind demonetization? I started to look at it and didn't complete that story. I also wanted to know who were the people behind. Ultimately, Modi himself. Ultimately, Modi. Shah would have given him inputs, others would have given their inputs. Certainly the RBI governors had a view on it. They were reluctant. And but ultimately it was the Prime Minister. I can't imagine Modi following something that he's not convinced about.
No, that would be very interesting to know that how come all of a sudden he came to that idea. Decision is one thing that, okay, if I have an idea that should I do this, I may consult you that I'm thinking about this, let's do demonetization. But any idea how he all of a sudden has this thing, okay, I have to do this thing. This notion, no, maybe he must have read that, okay, this was done some years back. Maybe if I do this, it becomes this part of history. So any idea about such a thing?
See, one of the takeaways of doing this book for me was to realize how ad hoc our decision making is at the top. How short-term considerations are dominant. There is very little thinking on what is going to happen as a result of this decision. 10 साल के बाद, 20 साल के बाद, 50 साल के बाद. It's the immediate survival. How do we get around this? It doesn't mean that long-term thinking has not been there. Nuclear pe tha, all prime ministers carried forward that story. But the timing of the test was immediate. I am under pressure from A, B, C, D. If I do this, I get on top of the situation. So also with all Mandal, absolutely far-reaching impact. Aaj tak wo ho raha hai. But at that moment, Vishwanath Pratap Singh went in for it to save his government. He couldn't save it, that's another thing. But so I think short-termism is very, and ad hocism is very dominant in our decision making.
And replacement thing? One doesn't have to be a match to someone. Is there a replacement to something?
Time will tell. Time will tell. We don't know. And he is now set to come back for the 3rd time.
And replacement can be within one party also. It doesn't need to be from outside.
Own party, outside, or not at all, he may just continue.
But he's on 75, halfway through the term.
How does it matter?
Change the rules.
Yes.
So, a lot of people who say, आपके पंजाब में नहीं, because Punjab is very different from other states in the Hindi heartland. Rajasthan, I met a lot of younger people, Chhattisgarh, I met a lot, all this in the last 10 days. We want, बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहा है, हम उसको दे रहे हैं सरकारी नौकर. छत्तीसगढ़ में बघेल ने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है किसानों के लिए, छत्तीसगढ़ी प्राइड, आइडेंटिटी. बड़ी इलेक्शन में हम मोदी को देंगे. But even in Punjab, not everybody, there are people, several people who say this. Nationally, no.